Hey
Right.
there, and welcome to the Business Behind the Game, where we break down the business side of sports, from emerging trends to the people and companies shaping the industry today. I'm Kushag, and today we have a really exciting guest, Joe Villapiano. He has spent nearly 2 decades on coaching at the highest academic and athletic levels, coaching at various Ivies such as Harvard and Cornell. He's worked as an offensive coordinator, position coach, educator, and currently works in the key role at Optimal Sports, where they combine analytics with mental performance. Before we start today, Joe, how are you?
Kush, thanks for having me on. I'm doing very well. I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit about my journey, my path, and how it can relate and help guys your age, like yourself, and open up some doors and see the possible avenues that you guys can go out there and get after it in sports. It's a really exciting time and really exciting opportunity for a lot of young guys like yourself.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get the podcast started today. So, just to start off, how did you get into coaching, and how was your journey to coaching at the highest level at various Ivy League football teams?
Yeah, so I come from a football family, a very athletic family. My uncle played for the Raiders. He was in on the '76 Raiders team that won the Super Bowl um, against the Vikings. So, and my father also played professional football for the Houston Texans of the World Football League before they became an NFL team. Um, so I was always, wanted to play football. And sports in general. My brothers and sisters. My sister was a Division One field hockey player at Miami of Ohio. My brother was a D1 soccer player at Dartmouth, and then my younger sister was a Division One lacrosse player at UMass. So
Yeah.
so we all wanted to play a college sport, and I ended up going on to play college football at UConn, University of Connecticut, the Huskies, out in Storrs, Connecticut, and I played wide receiver there. And along that path, I had a great coach my senior year, a guy by the name of Vinny Marino, and
Mhm.
he's still one of my mentors today. Um, but he took a group of wide receivers. You know the wide receiver position. Those guys are usually some would call them prima donnas, some would call them high maintenance.
Mhm.
Get me the ball, all those type of guys. He took us and he shaped us into we were killers. We really took on the part of, hey, we're going to be work guys, we're going to be dogs, and we're going to fight and scrap for each touch that we get. We're not just going to be blessed with, hey, the quarterback's just going to throw us the ball. No, we got to work in the run game to get the football. And I really loved that. It really spoke to me as somebody that was, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the quickest, and I'm not the biggest, so you know, work ethic and working and outworking somebody was really my way to get on the football field. And he really brought that out in me and our entire group.
Mhm.
And it had such an impression on me that I wanted to do that and become a coach myself.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, was there like, I mean, you just talked about, your coach inspiring you, and he's still being a mentor today. Was that the specific moment or time where you decided you want to do coaching, or was there like a different time where you really decided, I want to go into the coaching and recruiting kind of field?
Yeah, so when we were at UConn, we were going into the Big East at the time, which you guys probably never heard of. But that was playing schools like Miami, Virginia Tech, Boston College, West Virginia. And at the time, we were in the 1AA or the FCS, they call it now. Um, so we weren't at their level. So we were getting our butts kicked every week.
Yeah.
We'd go down to Miami and get absolutely, you know, killed.
Hmm.
Um, and then, there was a point where Coach Marino was just like, guys, when is enough going to be enough? When are you not going to be intramural players and go be varsity players? And when
Yeah.
you get punched in the mouth, when are you going to punch back?
Yeah.
Um, and that's when I was like, you know what, man, this is real. It changed. We went from a bunch of cool, fun guys to a bunch of like, no, 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 we're done getting hit in the mouth.
Yeah.
We're going to start hitting. We're going to start attacking. We're going to get up off the ground, and when we're going to start imposing our will on these people. And I just loved that. I loved that mentality, and that was like the moment where Coach, we were 2 wins, 6 losses my senior year.
Yeah.
Okay, and we never had a winning season when I was at UConn. So we were 2-6, and that was the moment where we were like, all right, that's enough's enough, guys. Like, let's go. And we went on a 4-game win streak. We beat Kent State. We beat Navy, which was they were really good at the time. And then our last game, we beat Iowa State and Seneca Wallace, who was one of the Heisman, finalists, like in the top 10 of the Heisman, and we ended up beating them. And that really turned the whole program around. Um, I think. And I think, honestly, maybe I'm a little bit delusional because I was in the position, but I think it was our position group. It was the receivers, finally saying like, hey, we're going to do the little things and do the dirty work in order to, earn those catches and those touchdown passes and all that stuff. And I think that shift of, mentality really is what took us over the top and made us a successful football team and inspired me to want to get into coaching and have that change uh, for my players.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's really inspiring, especially just seeing the shift in your season. Going from 2-6 to a winning record. I mean, that's like a really great mentality to have for sure. So I wanted to switch a little bit to your current role. So for those who aren't familiar, can you talk like a little bit about what PsyOps does?
Yeah, so Psyoptimal Sports, it's a company that was founded and created by a former Navy SEAL. Okay, so he was a Navy SEAL, but he was also a sports psychologist. So he was, trained, in college and all that stuff to do psychology. After that, he went into the Navy SEALs, Joint Special Ops Command, JSOC. And when he went through all the testing and, got accepted, they then started to work with him on, with his psychology and his sports background, they started to work with him on, hey, is there a test out there that we can implement to help find basically the 1% of the 1%, so the highest of
Yeah,
the high, mentally capable people. Um, and is there a way that we can tell and predict how our military personnel, our operators are going to act under extreme pressure,
yeah,
when literally the bullets are flying. We say it all the time in football. How he's going to respond when the bullets are flying? Well, it's just a game in football. But
yeah,
in the military, it's actually real.
yeah,
So he created, with the help of some of his officers and all that, they created this mental strength assessment test to really determine who would be a good fit for these super special operations units, Delta, SEALs, Rangers, all them, um, so they could kind of tell mentally, like, hey, who's going to be able to withstand the extreme pressure and still take orders and be a leader and all those, sort of things. So that's in a nutshell how the company started. Then from there, this guy, Dr. Wayne Chappelle is his name. He was approached by a general manager in the NBA, Oklahoma City Thunder,
yeah,
and he asked him. He said, "Hey, would you be able to take this test that's geared towards the military and apply that to high performing NBA players that have to perform under high stress environments?"
yeah.
Same, just, a game now, basketball. So that's really how the company started. So they've been using that model to, to help them in their drafting people. So as they, get their draft picks every year, they give these, the people that they're potentially drafting this mental strength assessment test. Any free agent acquisitions, any guys on waivers that they may want to pick up, they give them all the test. And they're really trying to find, all right, who is going to be, it really is a test of the intangibles, the character, that you have mentally that allow you to perform at peak performance. So they give it to all of those guys, and then they use it for their own team, to help develop them and say, hey, this is where this player's at, and this is what he needs to get better, and this is or what he needs to be able to perform at this higher level. So they use it for a whole, they get a whole lot of use out of it, in terms of who they bring in and when they have the guys on their team. So he now has bundled that up, and now we're trying to get other teams on board. And, in the football environment is why I was hired, to specifically get, scouting departments and player development departments in the NFL and college, to, you know, get going, look at this stuff and use it for their recruiting and their team development as well.
Okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So you talked like a little, I mean, a lot about the psyops and especially what they do and their come up. And then you said that you work specifically in the football role. So what does a day in that role kind of look like for you?
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is, well, one, I work with these guys in terms of, how are we going to the biggest question mark, Kush, when you're going from one sport to another, or really from the military to sports, and then from that sport to another sport, there is a big learning curve, and there is a teaching that has to happen when you're talking to coaches or scouting departments or player development departments. Um, so I work with them on what is important to the football staff, what's important to football people, because that may be very different than basketball.
Yeah,
An NBA player is very different than an offensive lineman,
yeah,
for example.
yeah.
Um, so we work basically on how to package and brand this to the NFL model or college model, for football. Um, and then we're hitting the phones, we're hitting the emails, we're texting guys, and we're trying to set up meetings and do all those things to get our name out there and to make these guys aware of what we do and how it can help them. Um, and then what happens is, I think, the thing that's happening is we've met with a lot of people, and then they can go about their business, maybe go through a recruiting cycle or go through free agency or go through the trade deadline,
Hmm.
um, or the draft. And and then when they're going through it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, that optimal team that we talked to,
Yeah,
maybe that would have helped here. Maybe that could help here. There's two guys that are super similar in terms of their physical. Well, what's going to be, who are we going to take? Which one? What's
yeah,
going to be the deciding factor?
yeah,
Oh, maybe that's optimal. Let's reach back out to them. So that's where we're at now. Really exciting. So teams are reaching out. We've met with four NFL teams in the last 2 weeks, and we have a couple more coming up in the next couple weeks. We won't name them. We don't want to get in trouble, but yeah, it's an exciting time for the football side of Sci Optimal.
yeah, definitely. I think that's very exciting. Especially working with the highest of like the best of athletes, NFL teams, NBA teams. I think obviously that's like really exciting. And also you talked a little bit about differentiating athletes because when you have two similar players, and I think the biggest way to differentiate them is through their mental strength. So you were talked a little bit earlier about the measuring the intangibles. You focus a lot on player output metrics and mental output metrics. Like, what are you specifically looking for when you're and how do you measure or evaluate the like psychological side of performance?
It's really important. Obviously, we talked a little bit, you and I, last week about how everything now, especially from a physical standpoint, is being measured. Everybody is testing things like 40-yard dash, vertical jump, 5-10-5, L drill, bench press, squat, hand size. That is a huge thing in the NFL. Arm length, wingspan, things like that, torso, everything. Everything's being measured.
Yeah,
But we really don't have a way to measure what's going on mentally.
yeah,
Like what's their mental energy like? Words like, we talked about character and intangibles, but are they resilient? Are they confident?
yeah,
It's just so simple. Is this player confident? Or it's our number one draft pick. Is he confident or not? Like and sometimes they're not. In their ability. Yes, they're super talented. Maybe they're super gifted, but they might not be super confident. Um, are they cohesive? Like,
mhm,
do they work well with others? Are they coachable? Are they going to be someone that will hear coaching and accept it? Or are they going to be someone that's going to push that and block that away and do his own thing? All
yeah,
right. All those things, are they resilient? Are they going to be able to get punched in the mouth and get back up, or
Mhm.
no. So those are a couple of the things that we measure. And the way we measure them is through, it's like a 90 question test, so there's a lot of questions. And, basically, and it asks the same questions in multiple ways, you know.
Mhm.
So you can kind of get a feel if someone is not telling the truth,
Yeah.
because it'll ask you about 5 times, very similar questions.
Mhm.
Um, so so that's how, it's kind of like a built-in forensics test, built-in lie detector test. And that
Yeah.
was from the military,
Mhm.
the way they implemented it. So that's, kind of how, and it's just on you know, a scale, like a 1 to 6 scale,
Mhm.
like strongly agree and strongly disagree type stuff, and
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle, um, or those type of, things. So it's, but that's the thing, that when we work with these departments, that's the first thing we say, like, hey, listen, this is for you to develop. This is going to give our psychology department, our coaches, our development team a snapshot, a mental snapshot of your makeup, and allow them to coach you the way that's going to be the most effective for you, and the way that's going to allow you to reach your peak potential.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's not a test that we're, hey, we're going to cut all these guys, and no, like that, we're trying to help them get along, and help be a tool for the coaches and the sports psychology department to really dig in and say, hey, this is how this guy, is coached, or these are some things that can help. And when
Mhm.
we go through all those things that we talked about, resiliency, character, all those, we give pro tips to kind of help the player, develop that skill set. Like if
Mhm.
you're in the bottom percentile, then hey, these are some things that you can do to help with your resilience. Those sort of things.
Yeah, you talked about this assessment, especially with like basically a lie detector test built into it. When you're evaluating the assessments, what specifically are you looking for to kind of know that how you're going to differentiate two or even more than that like athletes?
Yeah. So basically, this, Dr. Chappelle, who we talked about before, has about 20 years of military data, and then
Mhm.
about 6 years, 5 to 6 years of Oklahoma City, um, and NBA data. So it's
Yeah.
not just the players on the NBA or on the OKC. It's the players throughout the league. I think they have around like 70% of the league that has taken the test.
Okay.
So all that data gives you a range. So now, based on all this, normative data, they can say, hey, if you score here, here, and here, then you're in this percentile.
Hmm.
And that kind of gives them an idea through that, 25, 26 years of elite level, operators and athletes taking this test. It gives them the idea of where somebody stands. Like, for example, the one story that, um, Dr. Chappelle tells us is about, SGA, Shea Gilgeous Alexander. You know who that is?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was a guy that was drafted by, I believe, the Hornets, maybe Atlanta, one of those two. Um, and through their free agency testing, they gave this guy the test. And SGA, I don't know if you've seen anything on him, but very quiet,
Yeah,
very, foreign Canadian guy.
yeah.
Um, but people kind of mistake that as not being confident, and not being a true, dog. And they gave him the test, and he received, I think it was 98th percentile.
Oh
And
wow.
OKC was like, yeah, we'll take that guy. We'll take him. And I think
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was. Like I said, maybe the Hornets. We're like, oh, sure, have him. Go ahead.
Hmm.
And then there was other guys on the team, that they did the same thing. People were just giving them away. So it's a lot, if you've seen that movie Moneyball, it's similar to that. You're finding value in these players where no one else sees the value. And this gave them a little bit of an edge to say, yeah, of the people that we've tested and have all this 25 years of data, this guy's in the 98th percentile. We want him on our team. And you look what happened last year; they won the NBA championship. So really, really cool stuff. And from what we've seen, and it's really done a great job with Sam Presti, the GM
Yeah.
of the OKC Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, that definitely paid off, especially, earlier when you see SGA, like you couldn't really see the player that he's become today, for sure. Like, just looking at his games, his play style, he's very like calm, he's collected, and even in the biggest moments, he's always going to be there. And I think that's definitely like a very true evaluation of the test. So you talked like a lot about data analytics within PsyOps. How do you see like data analytics progressing over the next couple of years, especially in scouting and also the development of athletes?
Yeah, I mean it's really a hot area right now. Everything, like we talked about, just the measurables physically, physical measurables. Um, and everything is even it's even going into the body as well. Everybody's doing these wearables, heart rate monitors, GPS systems, you name it, cholesterol. Uh, it's really remarkable all the wearables, and by wearables I mean like stuff that you wear that is testing and recording your whatever it may be, your workouts, your sleeping,
Mhm.
um, you're resting. It's like everything is you can be, you can record everything.
Yeah.
Um, Now, who is going to sort through that data? Like there are a lot of data points. If I've done a couple Ironman triathlons, and I used to wear a heart rate monitor for that because that was like the big thing. Like, where's your heart rate at? This and that. Get into this zone, and that's where you need to train.
Mhm.
Um, but that is thousands of data points. Every second there's a heart rate coming in. So who's going to go through all that data?
Yeah.
You know, um, just from that standpoint, and then you take that and like you put heart rate monitors. We talked about like the Premier League and those European soccer leagues. They do so much of that stuff.
Mhm.
Like who's going to go through every second of a 90-minute game of every single all 11 players on the field? Like it's a lot of data to go through. You need a staff to do that. Um, so that's really where I think it's going, Kush. There's guys like you that can go in there and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be the guy that is going to take all of this data, give you a synopsis of it, so not every single data point. You're going to kind of bundle it up and say, hey, this is what's going on with this player, or this is why this player is tired, or this is why he's mentally not, checked in, he's checked out. So that stuff, and a strength, now it's kind of falling on the strength and conditioning staff, but like they're putting together their strength and conditioning program, you know? So they don't have time to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the coaches certainly don't because they're trying to get ready for the game and scheme up their next opponent, so that's where you see the the new opportunities for this young generation like you who are good with tech, good with wearable stuff and data points that come in.
Mhm.
You guys can go through it and or make yourself valuable to an organization by saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to take all this you know optimal data that you've gotten, I'm going to put it together, and I'm going to say this is where our team's at and this is where this player's at.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we're going to break it down and do just the receivers or just the quarterbacks or just the DBs, and we're going to say, hey, this is where that group is at. They're having trouble, they're not getting along, maybe they're not getting along with their coach. So you need somebody, and you need people to go through that data. That's where um, I see kind of the next wave going with this new stuff going on. And Optimal is just a very small piece of it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very important. Because I mean, you can always have all the data in the world, but if nobody's there to sort through it or break it down for you, especially for people like such as coaches who are busy all the time, then it's definitely like difficult for them as well. So you just talked about the progression of data analytics, but thinking on like a broader scale, like what are some like more exciting developments in the sports industry that you've seen, and also where do you think the sports industry do you think will go in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've seen in the last couple of years, Kush, in terms of sports analytics is, um, I don't know how to really say it, but like in football, they literally take every single play. So by down and distance, by yard line, by the spread of the game, like whether you're favored to win or you're not favored to win.
Mm.
Um, and they literally will tell you, hey, if it's 3rd and 3 and you're on the plus 30-yard line,
Yeah.
um, our analytics say you should go for it. If you get it to 4th and 2, you should go for it. Not kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Go for it. So that's kind of the latest, and it's with everything. It's
Yeah.
with every aspect. I mean, I could. That's one example. Um, but just the down and distance. Do you go for it or not, or do you punt, or do you kick? Do you pin them deep, or do you kick a field goal, or do you go for it on 4th down? That's
Mhm.
just one example of, or do you go for two, or not go for two? So that's kind of the new wave, and that now there are people, and that comes in, like, you think about every single down and distance, every single field zone, every single quarter, how much time is left in the quarter, in the game, in the first half. The book is like this thick.
Yeah.
So there are people now, and one of my former players, a kid from Brophy High School, Cade Knox, he does this for the New York Giants. He played for us at Harvard. Great kid, super duper smart. He takes this book, and when Coach Dable got let go, but like one of the head coach will go, all right, hey man, it's just that same situation. It's
Mhm.
3rd and 3 on the plus 30. What should we do? And Cade will find where that is, and he'll be like, all right, the book says, and this is all based on Vegas odds and favorable. Are you favored to win or not?
Yeah.
The book says we should go for it on 4th, and if we get the ball to 4th and 2. So if you gain 1 yard on 3rd and 3, get it to 4th and 2. It says we should go for it. And
Mhm.
so that's a huge decision, like huge, because those are the questions that the head coaches are going to have to answer when they get into um, the media meetings after the game. Hey,
Mhm.
you went for it on 4th and 2 and you got stuffed. Why didn't you kick a field goal? Well, my analytics said to do this. So that's really the new thing that's happening now in the NFL. You'll hear guys say it, um, when they start to question, the decisions that teams are making. They'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't know what the analytics was saying there."
Yeah.
You'll hear some of the announcers say that, but that's what's going on, and that's a book, like I said, that thick, um, of every single. Oh, I didn't even tell you about the score. You might be down 6, you might be down 7, you might be down 3, 2, 1. It's for every single variable, and that's why the book is so massive, and that's why you need somebody to do that full time.
Yeah.
He's a full time analytics. He just does the analytics decisions. So from football, that's really what's going on there, because football is not a free flowing game. Like there's stops every single 40 seconds or so. There's a stop in the action and a different play, which is a different situation. Whereas basketball, it's free flowing, you're going back and forth.
Mhm.
Hockey, same thing. Um, But baseball is another one where you have these stops. Each pitch, there's a stop.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 2 strikes. We're down 1 run. We got a runner on second. What should we do? Like
Mhm.
it's endless, and it's really mind blowing, like um how somebody goes through this stuff and figures it out. Like it's a lot of work, and we paid a lot of good money when I was at Cornell to get this NCS was the company, NCS book, to kind of help us make the right decisions during the game.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that there too as well. Just the analytics play a huge part. I mean, even within the team, but especially outside of it too, with the fans within for sports betting, like through like many sports books like FanDuel, DraftKings, even within Prize Picks and fantasy sports. I mean, like analytics is definitely developing a lot. So before we wrap up today, what are some advice that you have from our audience in getting into the sports business industry and really deciding what they want to do later in life?
Yeah, so I think, Kush, I would advice I would give is, don't be discouraged if you didn't play a college sport or even a high school sport.
Mhm.
You just got to, there are so many teams and programs out there that are looking for people that are smart, good with technology, able to decipher clumps of data and use that data to help guide the team or guide the players or guide the position. Um, so that's something that I think is really, really important. Just because you didn't play college football doesn't mean you can't work for a college team or an NFL team. You know, or in the scouting department or the coaching or whatever it may be. We talked about Bill Belichick before. He's a guy that didn't play college football, but loved football and loved the scheme, loved every aspect of the matchups that you get and how to create matchups and mismatches, to help your team win. And obviously he's used that to win 6 Super Bowls and become, the all-time winningest coach in the NFL. So you wouldn't look at him and be like, oh yeah, he played this level, that level, that level. I mean, he was the best NFL football player of all time. No, he wasn't. But he really had, a strong interest in coaching and loved the game and wanted to work hard. So that's what I see, from I think, you young guys have the opportunity. If you want to get in there, you can. Like I said before, if you want to become a scout, go watch every single player coming into the Pac-12 and well, Pac-12's gone now, but ACC or Big Ten, whatever,
Yeah.
and write up a little evaluation on all of those guys. And, you might not get a perfect evaluation the first time, but as you continue to work and continue to get better, and evaluate more guys and compare more guys and maybe come up with a system of like how to grade guys. That's another thing that I think is really, when we talk about um, how do you evaluate these guys? We talked a lot about today the mental. We're
Yeah.
creating a way to evaluate somebody mentally. Well, there also has to be a way to evaluate somebody's film. Like there has to be a scale. You can't just say he's really good. Well, there's a lot of people that are really good.
Yeah.
Why is he really good? And these are the reasons why he's really good. And maybe there's a grading scale that goes with it. He's
Hmm.
a 10 in terms of running. He's a 7 in terms of getting in and out of his break. He's an 8 in terms of his catching ability or his catch radius, whatever. And
Hmm.
then that will give you a number on each kid, or each player that you watch.
Yeah.
So there's certain ways where I think, you can come up with a grading scale or a structure to be able to evaluate people and make great decisions. That's really what it comes down to. Are you going to make a great decision on this player and him be worth your time and money? That's what it all comes down to, or not. Or are you going to, draft somebody and it becomes a bust and you end up wasting millions of dollars and now he's overplaying in Europe? So that's really what it comes down to is how can you create a scale so that you can have a great idea of what you're getting physically and mentally. And I think guys, in your generation are very skilled at that type of stuff,
Hmm.
having, using the tech and, coming up with certain things to, be able to rate somebody and then help you make a great decision on somebody.
Yep, I mean that's I think that's a great mindset to have, especially working hard and not letting your experience stop you. I mean, even the greatest football coaches may not always have played college football or even high school football. So, I mean, I really thank you for that advice, and more than that, thank you for taking your time today for joining the podcast. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Huge thanks to Joe for sharing your story and insights, and you can check out his work through the links below. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe and leave the review. I'm Kushag, and I'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Coach.